Sami Hamdi is a Middle East analyst and he joins me now from our London studio. Good to have you with us. I mean, it's interesting that Sami Annan would actually enter the competition, throw his hat into the ring, knowing that he may well be disqualified or arrested. He must have had a knowledge that there is some sort of ground support within the military services or within the public at large that sees him as a potential candidate.
I think that's very true. I think what this demonstrates is that the army is losing its ability to keep its ranks in order. Ahmed Shafiq, remember, is also part of the army and served as Prime Minister, and he disobeyed the army and announced his intention to run for presidency. Sami Annan, likewise. I think Sami Annan, even in the days when Sisi took over power in his military coup, there were rumors that Sami Annan did not necessarily like the prospect, that Sami Annan was for reconciliation with the Muslim Brotherhood. And he's always been touted as a potential conciliatory candidate for the presidency of Egypt. Of course, don't forget that Sami Annan was also very brazen in his approach to the presidential candidacy. He appointed Hisham Geneina, the former top auditor, who was ousted by Sisi after claiming that more than $75 billion was being lost in corruption. Sami Annan, in his speech announcing his presidential candidacy, accused the army of mismanagement of Egypt. It was very brazen. This is why I don't necessarily think that it's a surprise.
Okay, if it's not
also,
so much of a
remember that Egypt
sorry,
is a...
I just want to get in there. If it's not so much of a surprise, if we can just talk in broad terms now, how much of a threat are then these candidates who throw their hat into the ring and then they are either dismissed, barred or arrested? They must be a threat to Sisi in some shape or form.
I think they are a threat. Remember, this is a country where presidents don't leave by elections. They either die in power like Gamal Abdel-Nasser, they're either killed like Anwar Sadat, or they're ousted by a mass movement like Hosni Mubarak. The problem is for Egypt, for Sisi right now, is he's struggling to find a puppet candidate. He's struggling to find somebody that when he wins 95, 96% of the votes, everybody can say, oh, that's okay, that's legitimate. Ahmed Shafiq is not a puppet candidate. Sami Annan is not a puppet candidate. They command weight in the social sphere. These other liberal candidates, they command puppets. So you need somebody like one of these media personalities or one of these businessmen who are pro-Sisi, who will put themselves up for a candidacy and then lose by a sweeping margin. Sisi is struggling to find that candidate, and that's why there's a need to imprison all of these people.
And what is interesting is there is what's a draft law issued, and I've got the paperwork here, in 2014, which basically, to cut a long story short, says that if no candidate is found and Sisi runs this election to its obvious conclusion, all he has to get is 5% of the vote and he's won the presidency. Is he trying to actually push all his candidates away? Is this another theory? Push all your candidates out the way so that you can win the election with just 5%?
I think that's a last resort for Sisi. Sisi does not want to be shown as the sole candidate in the presidential election. Remember, despite his dictatorial, brutal regime and the like, he needs to keep up a show to Europe, to the US, to the rest of the world, that there is some semblance of a democracy. Even though he's going to win by 94, 93% if an election does pass, he needs some sort of fake contest, fake competition. He desperately needs a puppet. Otherwise, he has no propaganda line to use. So I think with Sisi, that's a last resort. That law is there just in case that he's unable to find a puppet. But I think that there are some candidates who are suitable to play as puppet candidates, and we'll hear about them in the coming future. The problem is, however, the likes of Sami Annan command support from the Muslim Brotherhood, from segments of the army, from segments of the wider liberal population, because Sami Annan has exposed a willingness to tackle some of the corruption. But what is really, really interesting is this. The fact that we now have two former military officials on the rebel list ready to go against Sisi suggests that the military is losing control. The military is unable to keep its ranks in file. This suggests that there's some sort of problem going on within the army. We've never seen this before in Egypt. We've never seen such a public disagreement between military officials. And I think Sisi will be very concerned that the likes of Sami Annan, a former chief of staff, a man who's fought in all of Egypt's wars, whereas Sisi hasn't, was brazen enough to come out in public and challenge Sisi.
Well, we shall see what does happen as we lead up to that election in March. For the moment, Sami Hamdi, thanks for joining us from London.